Genetics helps us understand the biological programming behind all life forms. But what exactly is the science of genetics? And what does its future hold?
The science of genetics is precisely rooted in DNA progressions, parental inheritance, and the coexistence of genes and proteins. Now, the future it possesses is in jeopardy. Register this. Genetics are often weaponized as an outlet to justify racist ideations. In reality, our genes do not determine personality characteristics, but rather the world around us does. Situations that account for false claims are dangerous. For instance, racism in science has historically used genetics to justify discriminatory practices, whether it be if an individual is fit for a job, absurd researches, or the flat-out bystander effect. Despite these alarming practices, DNA does not indicate your character. Moving on, we'll analyze how racism manifests in genetic science. For example, we will observe how African scientists are excluded from their own data, youth are taught misconceptions of race, and teens of color, particularly Black and Hispanic youth, are experiencing a mental health crisis as a byproduct of structural racism. And remember this, not genetics. The fact is, a person's interests, passions, and living circumstances will matter more than a person's skin color or genetic code, or even DNA. This film will dismantle those racist ideologies and remind us that science is about bringing people together, not pitting them against each other. The African Society of Human Genetics, AFSHG, was formed in 2003 to address the level of inequality in genetic science, including helicopter research. This organization includes foreign scientists gathering and exporting samples of African genetics and do not include or support African researchers. AFSHG brings scientists from all over Africa together for shared research, scientific collaboration, equity, all to conduct research that benefits African communities. The examples previously mentioned illustrate how real-world outcomes are shaped primarily by racism, not genetics. Julia Svoboda-Goeva's article is centered on the notion that racism may be a lingering issue in the teaching of science. Through 3 studies with high school and college students, some experienced computer tutorials that address ideas about genetic variation and race, while others experienced hands-on DNA kits or scripted debates in a scientific auction. In one instance, students heard a fictional debate between a racist scientist and a more neutral scientist as evidence of both positions. After this very brief study, the opinions of the students remained relatively the same. This evidence supports the argument that racism, not genetics, shapes how people think about race. If schools don't make evident corrections to these false ideas, then students may make the assumption that race produces differences in ability. For instance, Kaiser, who revealed struggles about teens, but did not attempt to fix the system. In Racism in Science, a perspective from gene therapy, Janine Schofield discusses how the genetic science community must take real action against racism. The editorial team at Janine Therapy recognized they were a group of just one Black editor and made commitments in 3 ethical statements. 1. To recognize the damage done from racism in science. 2. To seek out education about the challenges Black scientists face, and 3. To amplify the voices of Black scientists. Gene therapy is a great example on how institutions can become responsible for racism in their field. It also highlighted the fault line of systemic issues that many other institutions, for instance, Kaiser Permanente, failed to fix. One of the stakeholders are Black professionals in science, especially those who are in more excluded locations like South Africa. Their experience related to microaggressions highlight not only the problem of systemic racism, but how racial bias shapes who historically is recognized, funded, or promoted. This again raises the fact that racism, not genetics, shapes the barriers people face, and the only way to address these discriminatory issues or even go about it is through intentionality. For instance, the gene therapy pledges. In this study, Structural Racism and Adolescent Mental Health Disparities in Northern California, researchers led by Julia Acker analyzed how racism and economic privilege affect the mental health of teens. Utilizing data from Kaiser Permanente, the researchers conducted a study in 2021 that surveyed approximately 30,000 adolescents aged between 12 and 16 years old, born from the years 2005 to 2009. The adolescents were asked questions regarding their feelings of depression, feelings of hopelessness, and thoughts of suicide. The data indicated that Black and Hispanic adolescents endured the highest percentage of depressive symptoms. The struggles in teen mental health are not a product of biology or genetics, but rather influenced by the lack of generational opportunities. Teens are not just numbers, they are individuals experiencing real harm from a system that claims to care but does not take action. Their collective experience reveals the failure of institutions like Kaiser to do more than just observe what is happening. If nothing is done, injustice will continue. Furthermore, the experience of Black scientists in South Africa shows how racism remains present in scientific spaces. Systemic racism, not genetics, determines opportunity in the science field. Institutions that benefit from the labor of Black scientists but provide no support are part of the problem. Their silence encourages injustices, as mentioned before. Educators and students play a key role in determining how future generations conceptualize race and genetics. Racism in education systems continue to reinforce injustices nearly every day. Even if it is not a conscious effort, moving forward, opportunities for people of color should be the standard. When the scientific community as a whole encourages understandings of genetics that explain race, inability, or worth, racist ideas are perpetuated and encouraged. This explicitly shows how poorly communicated teaching can form into toxic perceptions and ideologies. In final, all areas of the world rely on science to provide research, education, healthcare, or public understanding. So to break the toxic cycles, it is essential to do so through action, inclusiveness, and accountability. From denying African scientists the ability to conduct research that is relevant to their own communities, to disregarding how we regard race in biology and education, to all the Northern Californian teens negatively impacted by racism, each and every one of us can be found guilty in individually conforming to a blind eye. The assumption that your DNA determines your personality or ability is not only unfounded and wrong, it is ignorant, because it fails to acknowledge the fundamental origin of inequality, which are racism and privilege. Remember that our interests, decisions, and experiences make us who we are. Let us collectively ensure inclusive research is the greatest priority in scientific fields. Institutions are expected to be held accountable, and most importantly, we should remember that no one can weigh someone's potential using their genetic code.